Hi, I'm Greg Garza. I'm with San Diego State Track and Field. I'm here today with Andrew Ninow of University of Washington, Seattle. We're going to be talking about the back of the ring. We're going to be talking about the windup, the left foot, and the left knee, and all aspects that we can come up with for the back of the ring and how it affects your throw. So, without further ado, Andrew, what do you think are the key points to the back of the ring in terms of the windup?
In terms of the windup. So the windup to me the main point is to initiate the throw, to get on that left leg, to initiate kind of the balance points. And then after that, it's kind of a stylistic thing. So you have people who start high, people who start low, people with big windups, small windups. And I think that's kind of the coach's job to kind of help guide that start, because different start definitely help out different things. And so that's kind of where your coach can come into big play and help, facilitate that change throughout the year.
Yeah, I think the windup is very much, like you said, start throw. It kind of gives you that extra momentum, but you have to know how to use it right. So I can wind up helping a lot of people and hurting some people. And I think that based on your experience level and your comfort level with the wind itself. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. It can be a huge hindrance to your ability to advance your throw as well. Because if you're using too much of a wind, you don't know how to control it yet, then it's actually going to hurt you. So yeah, learning how to use that momentum to your advantage is something that takes time and experience to kind of learn how to do. So I think in the beginning, you kind of want to simplify, make it very basic, and kind of remove a lot of the movement from it. And as you get more comfortable and advanced in your technique, you can start to kind of add more of a flow or a rhythm to it.
Okay, well, you're saying taken away. What about the shifting aspect? You see a lot of people when they're doing it, some people stay very erect, some people shift all the way over and then back onto that left. Where do you stand on that aspect of it?
So I'm good with either. I've seen athletes do both. Like, you see a lot of people who are very left side oriented to begin the throw. They just kind of essentially reach out left, drop, and go. And then you have others. I think Ryan Whiting's a great example of someone who really uses a lot of wind up, or even Tom Walsh, for example. So they both can produce big throws. There's probably more potential in the big windup. There's also more risk in the big windup. So if you're a powerful thrower who maybe has not as much athleticism, probably a static start that kind of sets you up and gets you on balance right away is probably the best. If you're hyper athletic and can use momentum well, then yeah, I think a bigger windup as you progress your technique can really help and aid your throw.
I agree. I'm going to show you a video. I have a girl who does some wind. She shifts, but not a lot. So as we watch this, you see in her windup, you get to the spot, she puts, and the left heel comes up a little bit and turns. But that shift is definitely coming over that, all the way over that right leg. She's probably at, like, I'd say 75% weight on the right leg. And then starting to use that momentum and shift into the left to start the movement. Now, this is probably the most that I would want. Now, there's a lot of people that do more, a lot of people do less, but I like how much she goes here. It's just kind of a easy wind. It's not aggressive. It's not fast. You see the relaxed arm. I like this wind for her. I think as she gets better, she'll be able to do it faster, but I wouldn't want her to wind any more than that, shift any more than that, and for what I'm trying to get her to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I think at that stage is pretty much perfect, kind of what you're looking for. Yeah, I know. I got a good side-by-side video. I'll try and pop it on, where I actually noticed that there's kind of two evolutions. One, she actually winds up the chest a lot more, and at the same time, she actually uses more of a shifting action on the. So the top video is about 18 months ago when we first got her. You can tell she's pretty left side heavy, and as she progresses through the throw on the top, you kind of see if I can get it going here. Is it looking okay, Greg?
Yeah, I see.
Yeah. So you're saying she's pretty already on that left side, kind of not getting a lot of risk, whereas 18 months later on the bottom, you can tell like it's actually very little weight on that left leg, maybe 20%. And the chest definitely winds up quite a bit more. You can see she's actually turned almost over her right leg entirely.
Yeah, the chest completely turns on that one.
Yeah, and so in both instances, she's able to get over her left leg really well, but on the bottom throw, she's able to get a lot more momentum into the throw. So yeah, this took 18 months to develop, so it's not something that happens overnight. And then the other thing that's kind of important to kind of point out is I didn't tell her to do more of this wind-up. It's something that as she got more comfortable with the technique, as she got more rhythmic with her throw, it kind of naturally developed. And to me, that's kind of, I think, an important way that things should happen in the back of the ring. There's fundamentals you got to stick to, and then hopefully over time, the rest of it kind of happens naturally. All right.
Yeah, I agree. I think there is a natural tendency to want to go to the big shift because what you see people doing. But I think that staying with a little more, less movement at first is better. Less is more. And getting your rhythm down, finding your style first. And then, like you said, you can always add in a little bit more speed, a little bit more wind later on. And like your girl did there, over time, she naturally kind of found her own wind with it and was able to turn her chest and shift the weight in the manner that fit her. But like you said, it has to come a little more natural. It can't be forced, or you're just going to end up fighting it the whole time.
Exactly. But yeah, I think the underlining thing is you got to hit the right positions. And once you've, it's slow to fast. Once you've learned how to do it in a slower manner, then things can naturally start to move a bit more. But the goal, number one, shouldn't be momentum. The goal number one should be getting on that left leg, getting balanced and going. And as you can take advantage of that more, great, you'll add more movement. So yeah, you got to make sure that your priorities are in line first.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, so we're back and we're focusing now on the left foot in the back of the ring. So we got the wind getting onto our left foot. Now what should the left foot do? So I think there's like a couple kind of main factors. The first is which direction is it pointing? Like where are we trying to get the left foot to go? And then the second thing being, should it be stopped or should it continue to rotate? And this piece there kind of really directs the rest of the back. If you're off on one of these 2 points, you're going to have a hard time, I think, putting the throw together. So great. What's kind of your view on the direction, and then should it be stopping or rotating when you push?
I think the left foot should be stopped. It's the best way to get solid traction and a good directional push. In terms of direction, I think that's heavily based on how much you sweep, but I would want it pointed either the left foot to stop pointing down the right sector line or down the middle of the ring at most. I don't like it going past because then that tends to over-rotate the back and you tend to use your shoulders to finish the rotation because now you get the clean push. What about you?
Yeah, I'm on the same boat. That left foot should definitely be stopped. It's more grippy, number one, so you're going to get a better push. At a slick ring or a wet ring, like you want that foot stopped so you can have some good traction. The other part of that is if you're on balance, it can stop. It's kind of like almost an indicator of what you're doing. So if you're like slightly leaning in or getting a little forward or whatever it is, very often that left foot keeps turning. So like turning left foot usually means a little bit off balance. And then direction, definitely, I think, 6 o'clock down the middle is the latest should stop. But yeah, that right sector I think is perfect because you got to kind of, the sweep's going to pull you in toward the middle as well. So you got to kind of counteract that momentum. So yeah, and like I said, you want to throw it in the middle. So that's where you should be pushing. You shouldn't let that left foot slide over because you're going to start dividing your energy.
I agree. And I think that's one of the things we just touched on there was the sweep and how active that sweep really is. Which is why I like kind of like, those drills that people talk about doing 360. It's like, oh, well, it can lead to over-rotating the back of the ring. Well, it's not meant to be just rotational drills. It's meant to just put you on balance. Now, you can do drills to stop that left foot. But like you touched on a major point here, which is being on balance. And that left foot stopping is a very big key of being on balance of it, because if you're off balance at left foot, a lot of times people go to the outside of the foot when they turn out of the back. It's like, no, to me, you need to stop the foot You need to turn on the ball of the foot, and it needs to be turned all the way. So this one, this is a perfect example. She's not on the ball, but she's a little bit on the outside, and watch where her momentum goes because of that. As soon as that goes here, even though she's already kind of sliding into the middle too much. No, the push is very dynamic. The left foot never got a solid start and grip. And you see it as we're pushing, it's going to slide as she's trying to push because she's rotating off of it as she's doing it. But she's also a little bit more of a beginner in terms of the rotation right now. But that movement right there, she on the outside of the foot, so never really gets a good weight on there. Versus somebody who's been throwing a little bit longer on this, and she does a better job of turning on the ball of the foot, better, and then right here, stop and push. You get a much better drive from there. If your left foot stops and you're able to push off it with the turning. So that last bit of the heel doesn't rotate her around at all. It's a push, and that helps her get out of the back of the ring better. But I think this is basically as far as I'd want it to go right there. It's probably the line she's looking at right here is about right here. So not quite middle, not quite right sector. I think that's really spot for her to be.
Yeah, I think that's pretty textbook as far as kind of where you want that left foot to stop. And then, yeah, I think with your beginner girl, while you kind of see that left foot move at the end, it's kind of that late push. So if you're not engaging the push soon enough, the foot will turn at the end of it. And also, if you're a little bit, you can kind of get tricky too, because like I'll show you Elijah, because he actually does a pretty good job of getting on that left foot and stopping it at the right time. But then he also has a habit of kind of just leaning in slightly with that upper body, and that left foot will begin to kind of turn again. So pretty good job. He'll stop that left foot pretty early. It's probably just between 6 and 7 o'clock. And then you can kind of tell, though, like that left hip, the left shoulder is just kind of leaning in slightly. And as he finishes that push, that foot just kind of starts to rotate a little bit right at the end, yeah. And so, that one's really, really minor. This is one of his better throws in the bottom. But one of his issues when things start going awry in practice is that left foot will start to kind of turn a bit more, which means he's leaning in a little too early. He's not setting up that left side. So, even though it's not an issue in this throw in particular, there's little signs that when things kind of start getting away from him, that's what he starts to do. And just as reference, I'm referencing the bottom throw, not the top one.
Yeah. No, but you touched on something major there, which is that balance part and the lean of the shoulder. So the more he starts to rely on the shoulder to get him into the middle of the ring, the left foot starts to come off. And the weight, instead of being on the ball of the foot, the more you start tilting, get on the outside, the more the foot's going to rotate around, the more that you're going to be coming off it almost late, and the foot's going to turn. So you're not going to get a clean drive off the left foot, which I think is one of the things that we're going to talk on the next video about, is that knee drop and how important it is. But I think the knee drop is going to be directly contributed to balance and that left foot stopping, and how confident you are in it. Because if you're not confident in that left foot, or your balance, or just stopping and setting it up, you're not going to get a good drive out of the back at all.
Yeah, and this all kind of ties in back into the wind. If that wind is upper body oriented and you're pulling ahead, that left foot can't stop. So like this is step 2. If that wind isn't right, you have a hard time getting this left foot right. So, all these things kind of build on each other and tie in. It's like nothing kind of happens in its own little box. They all relate to each other.
I agree. All right. And for our last point here, we're going to be talking about the left knee, kind of what the direction is, how low does it go, how important is it, and what are the overall contributing factors to having a good left knee drop out of the back of the ring? Andrew, where do you stand on this?
So this left knee, as we're kind of, rehearse this a little bit, trying to figure out our thought points, it probably has the most variability as far as like the athlete's ability, their strength levels. I think the core values is that we are getting some drop toward wherever that left foot is pointing, that knee is going the same direction. So I think often you see a knee come in, or you want to see it go in the same direction as your left knee, as your left foot is pointed. And then you want to get enough depth where you can get a good push, but not be falling in at the same time. And then this is really where all the work from the back of the ring, this is your launching point. So, being able to use this effectively is really important, and those previous steps beforehand allow you to use it effectively. So we'll kind of dive in a little bit more after Greg here gives his side of it.
So I think the left foot is very much, or the left knee is very much a strength-based part of the throw. You have to be on balance. You have to have momentum with it, and you need that motor, the left leg motor, to drive you across the ring. But if you don't have the strength to catch a big knee drop or any sort of knee drop, then I really would advise against it, even though a lot of people are going to say, like, okay, you're going to hop, you're going to do other things. Yeah, but there are more severe consequences to dropping too low than not dropping enough. And always increase it as you go, as your strength and your athleticism gets better. But the knee drop, it's like you were saying, it varies very much based on the athlete, because you see people go over, look at Kirsten Cantwell, hardly any knee drop, but he had a massive motor and he brought the sweep into it. And you look at Tom Walsh, not as big as a motor, but his knee drops, he's bringing the sweep, or Joe Kovacs. He has a massive knee drop, but he has a huge engine. Yeah, he has a huge squat, so he can use it. So I'll show a video real quick here of an athlete who doesn't quite have the strength to be catching the full knee drop. Okay, but she's doing the position. So this is just where it caught. So the knee drop is good right there, but I don't like that her hip's still moving forward, and then boom, right there. So she's getting a good push and she's getting extension, but you see the knee starting to come up and the hips start moving forward a little too early for my liking on this, versus her counterpart here, who she's a little bit stronger. So the knee drops, and then the push happens with the hip. So the hip is right here, and the push starts to happen, and she's moving her hips forward and a little bit better on this aspect right here. But I think that's contributed to the fact that she's just a little bit stronger out of the back. Now, if you want to go to what I think is one of the best back of the ring movements, is probably, Nick, in this last week, we've been trying to factor in a little bit more of a wind. What I like is this right here, this position. His hip is on top, if not slightly behind his knee. The knee drop is happening right there and is working with his sweep. And because of that, you see that hold? And now he's driving into the ring with his hip, or should I say sweep. His sweep is actually bringing his hip into the ring. The left foot is pushing with the sweep to combine both rotational and linear forces forward. But I think this position, to hit this position, hold it while this sweep is happening, takes a tremendous amount of patience and strength. And this took probably 2 years of training to get him to that point. Before this, he used to drop his hip in a little bit more actively, and he wouldn't get this kind of a sweep before. So this is what I think is my ideal where I like him.
Absolutely.
Or where I like the left knee.
Yeah, super classic position stuff you want to achieve. And kind of talking about, taking 18 months, 2 years to figure things out. I think I got my girl here, Michaela. I think we're on a very similar type progression where we're trying to figure out how to use her left leg. And if you go to the top video when she first kind of got here, I think she was trying to get those deep, deep drops that you see all the professionals do. And you can see like how low her left knee is, but she's stuck. She actually can't, she doesn't have the strength to push out of that deep position. So you kind of see she's kind of almost sitting backwards on her left leg, and she hardly gets any push. And basically the kind of telltale sign for that happening, you see that right foot land super early, in the ring, and she's not getting much, push across basically. And then what we kind of progressed to was this right here. And I think the difference between me and Greg a little bit, whereas he wants that left hip to stop, I actually want a little more of that left hip to continue to kind of drop or drive you into the middle of the ring. So I don't want that left hip momentum to stop. I kind of like a glider uses a little bit of that drop. You want to use gravity to kind of help pull you out into the middle, and then pop and use that sweep to hit the center. So even her, like, we're still kind of figuring things out. You can tell she kind of missed this a little bit, where that left foot's dragging a little bit. She didn't quite complete the push, but that's kind of a good example of kind of what we've been trying to accomplish with her in the last 2 years.
Okay, so here's my question. How do you tell, or what are the telltale signs for you for if someone's not dropping the knee enough? Or let's go with this. What's the telltale if they're dropping the knee too low?
To me, it's if there's no push across the ring, like if they're not getting very far across the ring, that means they're getting buried. So if you're getting too low, you get buried. You can't kind of come out of it. Kind of like if you're in a squat, you get out of position a little bit, the chest drops, all of a sudden you can't push out of it. So to me, that's kind of a good sign, is like not getting across the ring. And then the second thing would be like the upper body, like kind of taking over and kind of like lunging forward into the middle of the ring, and that right foot landing really, really early.
Yeah, I think the knee drop leads to the first thing you said, like you not getting out of the ring. But I also think one of the consequences of dropping the knee too low, too early for your strength, is that you will start falling into the ring, or you'll start like kind of dipping into the ring. Your line of force, your directional force will be off from where you're throwing it. So I like to say, wherever you drive out of the back ring, wherever your force is going, that's where the implement should be traveling to. The shot put of the discus, you should be, wherever you're driving to, that's where the implement should be going, because that's where your force is driving. So one of the things I see is when people drop that knee too early or too low, is now their chest drops to try to maintain the balance, or their hips drop in way too early to try to get that line going the right way. And either way, you're going to be off balance and you're going to end up missing your throw.
Yeah, and it will just won't look dynamic. It might look right on video. Ooh, look how low he is. But if there's no kind of pop and rhythm and acceleration, then you're just getting buried, basically. You're trying to mimic what is not possible.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that also goes into the fact that I like to have the knee on top of the foot when you're turning. I don't like to see when people are turning, opening up out of the back of the ring to set up the drive, that knee is now, the weight is now more towards the pinky toe, or the knee opens up faster than the foot, because now your knee is open, your foot's here. Your body doesn't like that position. You don't like your body not in line. Your body likes symmetry. It likes to have the knee on top of the foot, on top with the hip on top. And that's why I like with the hip lined up like that. Now you like it because of the momentum aspect. I like it because of the drive. So we are focusing on different motors, but we're both trying to get the same goal, which is that energy across the ring in a dynamic way.
Yeah, and point in the same direction, like you said. I think it kind of comes back to just general mechanics of track and field. If you're a sprinter, your toes and your knees and your hips should all point toward the direction you're running. And the same thing at the back of the ring. When you finish that push, your toes and your knees and your hips should be pointing toward the direction of the throw. Now, once you leave the ground, things rotate and change, but up to that point, you should be going one direction the whole time.
Yeah, and I agree. I think one of the biggest things right now is when people are trying to rotate, a lot of people are thinking the rotational shot put, there's all this rotational energy, but the only thing that's really rotational is the right leg, and the left leg is very linear, the right leg is very rotational. And we're trying to push and drive into the middle, and same thing at the front. Especially in shot put, you hit that finish. I see so much with the pulling and everything, but sorry, that's a different day, but the back of the ring, I'll edit that out later.
Yeah, it's easy to get away, but you're right. Like, we're trying to, rotational consequences with linear pushes. You don't try and rotate. You try and push in straight directions. You drop in straight directions. And then the end result is it creates a rotational movement, but you're not trying to actually rotate.
No, the sweep is what's bringing you around.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I don't like the upper body getting involved a lot in the back of the ring. I don't like when you said the wind. The wind is good. All right, the knee drop, the foot stop, good. I like that upper body to hold with the left side for the drive versus you see a very active opening of the left arm, and I think that can really throw off the balance and your directional force. I think it drives it too much to the left sector, even though you're gaining rotational energy. It's very difficult to catch that energy in a directional line if you're adding in another rotational element.
Yeah, it just gets more complicated and tougher to execute.
Yeah, so, I think less is more as you go forward. Get on balance, find a line, drive down that line. Keep it simple.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, perfect. Thank you, Andrew, for joining us today, and I appreciate it. Hopefully we'll get some more of these sessions going.
Yeah, it was great, Greg. Hope to do it again.
All right, bye. All right. Oh, wait, there it is. All right, so we're going to close out with a couple side notes, something to look at, talking about funneling down and simplifying your technique, and secondly, watching or learning off YouTube or Instagram or Facebook or Twitter or anything that's online coaching and videos, how to take things into context. So Andrew, please tell us your funnel down model.
Yeah, so this is something I heard from our coach Art Venegas, but maybe he just said it one time because Greg never heard it before. But what he was saying was, his job in the first few years, a couple of years of coaching someone in college was, they have this broad of a technique. This is what they do, and it's lots of complications and bells and whistles. And so what you try and do is actually funnel them down into a nice neutral technique. Like we talked about with the back of the wind, like kind of slowing things down, getting on the left, stopping, but basically hitting all those very basic points with no bells and whistles. And then once you're on balance and moving the right direction and setting up the right positions, then you can kind of start to funnel back out and add all those stylistic variations that allow your rhythm to kind of shine. And that's when I think those really big distances start to happen. But first you got to get down into those basic positions. And then once you've, as I say, kind of graduated from the high school, you've gone there, then you can expand out and start to add on more of those momentum and stylistic changes.
Yeah, I think that's based on having that trust in the coach, though, and that buying in that we've, you hear a lot of coaches talk about and everything, that you're buying into it. It's not just doing exactly what you're told. It's understanding what they want from you, why they want it, and then okay, they're trying to funnel me down to get me down to this model here. And then once I get to that point, it's because I got rid of all these inefficiencies, all these off-balance movements that even though I threw far, were not helping my throw at all. And now I can start adding in those little flair and how much wind, how aggressive you attack the sweep and so forth. That's how you really start bringing that back into it. But I think that's based on how much trust you have in your coach and how much you bought into the program, not just, all right, my coach told me to do it, now I'm doing it, so whatever. Well, I think you need to have understanding and asking questions to your coach, not just why am I doing this drill, but what am I working on in this drill? What is the point that I'm trying to learn with a specific drill or a throw? What's my goal for the day? I think that's a big thing that kids aren't getting as much. It's more of a why do I have to do this versus, all right, what am I trying to learn here? I think that's a big thing.
I think you have to be invested in what you're doing. If you're not, you're gonna have a hard time, going down that path for a long period of time.
Yeah, and which brings me to the next point of, like you said, invested. And so black kids are doing homework and they're watching professional athletes. Tell me, what do you think could be the downside to watching too much of the professionals?
I think we get infatuated with the freaks of track and field. I think we got realized these are very, very special, unique people, and most of us aren't them. I was not one of them. So to try and emulate these people, it can kind of lead you down the wrong path. And it kind of along those lines is like, what body type are you looking at? Ryan Krauser and Joe Kovacs were within 1 centimeter of each other. Same thing with Tom Walsh. Like, they're all very different athletes. Two of those are around 6 feet tall. One's almost 6'7". They have different strength levels. Some are more dynamic. Some are more powerlifting based. And so you got to make sure you're picking a model that kind of like fits who you are. And sometimes that model might be a college athlete that no one knows about. That might be a better model for you because they probably relate more to kind of your physical abilities. I think the other thing too is maybe not picking one person to look at, but kind of look at the commonalities between everybody. I think if you kind of are able to look at all, 10 different athletes and they all do one thing pretty similar, then I think maybe that's something that's important. So I think looking at commonalities can be a better way of kind of getting through the noise of all the different techniques and styles.
Well, not to mention, like we've talked about before, is putting everything in context. Like, how your girl's adding in the wine based on kind of as she gets more comfortable. You see Ryan Krause does a big wind out of the back, and so does Tom. And you see this big shift over it or crank back, and because Tom puts that foot back also, but that's all developed over time. And you don't know how long that they've been doing that for.
Mm-hmm.
They could have been working on that for 5 years, could have been working on it for 6 months. The context of their training is not always privy to the public or what they're working on at any given time. So I think taking the throw as a whole, it's good to have goals and to aspire and look at these guys and go, man, they're amazing. What are they doing right? What are they doing? What do I think they're doing wrong? But to also take it all in context that these guys are very special individuals, not just physically, but they've taken the time to do the drills and do all these things. So, okay, I like what you said there about look at these things. What are the 10 these guys do that's the same? Okay, well, that's probably something that's a pretty common theme that everybody should be doing. So let's look at that. But don't just take one person and take, I like his sweep, I like his middle, I like her finish, because none of those things really go into each other. You don't just take parts from a BMW and throw them into a Ford. It's not going to fit. You got to make sure the parts are going to fit, and that's your body type, your athleticism, and your strength level. Like you said, sometimes college athletes are the better one to watch because they're more similar to what you're doing.
Yeah, no, I've found the best technicians are the weakest athletes because they have to. They don't have a choice. They can't get away with bad positions because they don't have the horsepower to overcome it. So sometimes, those guys in the midfield are actually really good technical models to watch.
I agree.
Yeah.
Thanks again.
Absolutely.